Hi everybody, it's Curtis here from AbaData. Coming to you today to talk about something we're very excited about here, and that is using our AI assistant to start combing through your field operational data that you're collecting on a day-to-day basis and mine it for that real value and start delivering that to you in a manner that you can consume very easily. If you've seen our other video on our AI assistant, that was really around just how it integrates with public data inside of AbaData. What we're talking about today is taking that same AI assistant and now giving it exposure to your data that's being collected through Field Ops, which is our proprietary tool for field operational collection, data collection, and mining that data for the operational insights that you can use to improve field operational performance on a day-to-day basis. So we'll dive in. I'll show you the Field Ops tool itself, just as a bit of an introduction, both on mobile and on desktop. And then we'll get into adding that AI assistant into that workflow and starting to give you those insights that are going to be so valuable for your companies. Switching over to mobile, I'm on my phone here. In this case, it's an iPhone, and you'll see I have an app on the sort of the middle of the screen there called Tranquility Resources. Now, Tranquility Resources is just a sample company that we've spun up. Our Field Ops tool on mobile is customized to each customer. So each customer gets their own logo, their own app. They can change colors and layouts and all of that type of stuff. So it's very, very customizable that way. The first thing you want to do, obviously, is just touch on it to open it up. You'll see a little logo splash up and you'll be taken into a screen that we call our status screen. And what the status screen is really a report card or a snapshot of all the inventory you've got loaded on your device. What is the current status? So as an operator, I know that I have 180 well sites that need inspection on my device. And I can see that colored bar below the well sites where I've got a little bit of blue, a lot of green, and a little red. That's indicating that we've got some pending, some complete, and a few overdue inspections inside that module. If I want numbers on each of those, I can expand that. And now I start seeing everything listed. So I've got 12 that are pending, 141 that are complete, and 27 well sites that are overdue for inspection. If I want details on any of those, I can touch into them. So if I wanted to maybe look at those well sites that are overdue, I can touch on it. It will take me into a list view. And now I've got all of those overdue inspections listed on my device. And right now they're sorted from the distance they are away from me. So I can see this closest one is 178 kilometers away. I can touch into them. I can see a well site inspection history, so I can see who's done this in the past and when they were done. I can also hit that create inspection button at the bottom where I get access to a form that is specific to this particular well site inspection. It starts off with things like dates. Obviously, you can change those if you need to. You've got some questions about roads. As you answer questions, there will be other actions that occur depending on the answer of those questions. These forms are all very customizable. Obviously, you can ask the questions that you want and have it laid out in the manner that you would like. There's always attachment options. So if you wanted to attach photos, you can attach as many photos as are needed. Put some comments on there and save that. That will be saved directly onto this device. The app works in an offline state, so everything is saved locally, requiring no internet connection. Once you're back in good connection, you simply come in, hit that sync button, and you will upload all of that data to the cloud and re-download everything onto your device. You'll also see at the top there's a button that says map. If I touch on that, that gives me a map view of where I am relative to all of my inspection data. And right now I started with the satellite imagery on, but I can turn that off just using the map features tool. Come in and turn off satellite imagery. And then now I'm just looking at sort of an AbaData map. So if I zoom out, I'll start to see those same overdue well site inspections showing as red dots on my map. Again, red indicating the status of the inventory. So these are well sites. As I zoom in and start getting closer, you'll see, similar to AbaData Online, you'll see the pipelines and the wells show up. All of those objects can be clicked on if you want more information. So I can see this well here is 2 of 31. If I click in, I can see that that is a Strathcona REC certified well. But we're here to do our well site inspections. So I would touch on the red dot, open it up, and you're looking at the same screen you were looking at when you came at it from the list view. So no different there. It allows you to do all of your inspections that way. Several other map tools. You can customize the layers that are shown, get into proprietary layer sets if you'd like, all types of ways to customize that application. There's also management. So in here, I can decide as an operator which areas I want to have access to. I can also decide what modules I want access to. So if I never do chemical, I would turn off chemical and I would never see that on my device. There's push notifications. So we have the ability to do push notifications. And then finally, there are some specific customized options here that allow you to change the way the application works relative to the way you want based on your workflow. There's also a Workalone module as part of this. So you can see right now I'm overdue for a check-in. I could simply end my shift, or I could complete a check-in. Either of those would satisfy my sort of overdue status on the Workalone policy. I think that's pretty a good overview of the application itself. So we'll switch over now to AbaData, where we can see this same workflow taking place inside AbaData, the application that you all are using on a regular basis. When you log into AbaData, you get the familiar view of the map with the toolbars, except you'll now also notice this bar at the bottom, and that's our Field Ops management portal. So this can be operating in several different states. I can drag it to sort of fit my needs. I can go full screen if I don't want to see the map at all, or I can drop it all the way to the bottom so that it just shows on the bottom of the screen and out of your way, or you can just use AbaData as normal. Open it up here again. You'll see it opens to a bit of a dashboard page where you've got some performance indicators here. So you can see of all my inventory, I'm sitting at 30% complete, 37% overdue, and 33% pending. That's everything. So if I wanted to drill in and focus on a particular area, I could come in and set this. So I'm now looking at Coaldale, hit apply, and the app will update to show you just the Coaldale stuff. You're also able to roll back in time. So if I wanted to, a lot of these are monthly inspections. If I wanted to say, show me these as they were at the end of last month, I could go April 30th, and you'll see those numbers adjust accordingly to say that we're really yesterday we weren't in much shape, but because we're moving into a new month today, that's why all of our stats are looking a little bit dismal there on the screen. Any of these module cards that you would like more information on can be clicked in. So if I wanted, again, to look at those well sites that are overdue, I can touch on the overdue part, and that brings me to a list of those well sites that are currently in an overdue state. I can click into them, so I can see here we've got our history of inspections. If I wanted to see what each inspection looked like, I could open them up, and there I've got access to the inspection, including any photos that would have been captured on site during that inspection. I'm also able to create inspections from this view. So if I were to touch into here, I could complete an inspection form online, just as if I was on my device. It would show up no differently. It just allows you to do it all through the web interface instead of using the app, if that's your preference. There are several other features in here, including Workalone. So I could come in here and see who's currently on shift. I could show all of my people on the map, where they're located, and you'll see all of them located there on dots. You're also able to visualize your overdue well sites on the map as well. So if I wanted, again, to look at those overdue well sites, I can come in here, click on the Show on Map button, And now I've got access to those red dots and my workforce. So I can see how those two relate to each other is more or less the idea there. As well, when you get access to Field Ops in AbaData, you can start to access that information from the double-click screens that you're already using. So I double-clicked on this well. It's an Alphabo. That's what I've got listed under my Tranquility Resources company. I see all of the regular information that I would expect to see in AbaData. But now I have the option here of Field Ops Management and Field Ops Inspections. Field Ops Management, this allows me to manage the inventory that I have on my site. So I can come in here, I can say, you know what, this site is now shut in, and I can make every inventory in there inactive, which will just remove it from the inspection schedules so that nobody has to worry about it. Keeps all the history, keeps everything there, just sort of deactivates it. And you can do those one at a time, or you can do them all on site. It's really up to you. The Inspections tab, same idea. Gives you that history of inspections. Only this time it's for everything that's on that well site. So I've got my well site inspections, I've got my tank inspections, my Prescos, and my pigging. And I've also got an Attachments tab that I can click into, and if I wanted to visualize a slideshow of photos over time, I've got access to that here, and I can see, you know, time between pigs. In this case, we've got 42 days, 20 days. And I could use this to evaluate my pigging intervals to see if they're appropriate for the debris that's coming out of the pipeline on pigging. That sort of sets the stage, I think, and gives you a bit of an idea of what is available for information inside of Field Ops. We'll move over now just to the AI component itself and how that now is able to interact with that Field Ops data that's being collected and stored inside of AbaData. Previous video, we mentioned the AI assistant lives in the bottom left or bottom right corner here of AbaData. You can see it says AI assistant. I can open it up, I can close it. That's no different. We've also added a new entry point inside of the Field Ops management portal. And if you look just over to the left, you will see an option here that says AI assistant. I can touch into it and it'll open that same AI assistant. So there's no difference here on what view you're looking at. It's not a different AI assistant. It's just another way to access it. I come in, I see my prompt. Again, very similar to ChatGPT or any of those Geminis, those type of AI prompts that you're all used to using every day. I can come in here and I can enter a question. So in this case, I'm curious about my data. So AI Assistant is able to handle sort of two different levels of conversations right now with the Field Ops data. One of them, very high level, to deal with data cleanup and sort of that level of interaction. And then there's a much deeper level where you can start to actually analyze insights inside of your data and get those valuable feedback from the questions you're asking about the data you're collecting inside of Field Ops. As I mentioned, we're starting here with a very simple data cleanup question, and that is, do we have any tanks on sites that are inactive? If I submit that, it's going to take that out to the AI assistant where it's going to recognize what I'm asking. So, you know, I'm asking here, do I have tanks that maybe I'm inspecting that I don't need to? That's really the premise behind this question. It's analyzing that. It's going to go ahead and look of all of the active tanks that I currently have in AbaData Field Ops. Are any of them attached to wells that, according to the production data or the AER well status, is inactive? So that mismatch is going to be identified, and I can wait for this response here, and it would come back and show me what well sites or what tanks are on well sites that are inactive, and give me basically a list that I can go and do that data cleanup on behalf of. So while that's working, I'll just switch over and show you some other interesting queries that can be done on the data. Again, up at that very high level sort of data cleanup. So here we're asking, what is the average number of working alone shifts per day over the last month? So just purely looking for, how many workers are using the Workalone module out in the field. And you can see we've got a very consistent line graph here. And it's looks like it's right around 29 shifts per day average. There's a graph, there's a table, and you can download that full report into Excel if you wanted. There's also a question here about the average combined distance traveled per day over the last month. So now I'm asking a little bit deeper. Of those 29 shifts per day, what is the average distance that is being traveled by my employees out in the field? And here you can see the average daily distance, just over 2,000 kilometers. Gives you a bit of a graph that trends that average over days. Again, a table, and you can download that. I can carry the conversation on a little bit further. And I can say how many total working alone sessions have there been over all time. And that's just going to come out with a single number. There's no analysis really needed on here. And that's just 2291. Keeping this conversation going yet again. And now I'm asking for a report that would show all of the Workalone sessions, including the user session start and end date and time and the distance traveled. So here I'm looking for a table that's going to give me all of those columns, and you'll see the results spit out here below, where you can also click on download to grab the full Excel version of that output. Moving on to another topic here. Here I'm asking how many D13 wells are in the Coaldale geographical area. So now we're taking a look at the hierarchy within Field Ops, recognizing there's a Coaldale hierarchy, sort of setting the bounds around that area, looking at the wells inside of there, and then taking that well list and sending it to the AER's D13 data set, coming back with a result to let me know how many D13 wells there are. And here I've got a report outlining all of those. There are 181 wells. If I was interested in making sure we were compliant on those, I could say how many of these wells are scheduled for a D13 inspection in Field Ops. And in this case, we only have one. So I can see that I have a bit of work to do in scheduling some of those D13 inspections on the site. Here's another conversation, again, dealing with data cleanup. And now we're looking for wells that have recorded production in the last 3 months, but have a tank inspection where the status of that tank was shut in. So here we're looking for some data inconsistencies where the well is obviously producing, but the inspector of the tank has noted that it is shut in. And it's going to go through and find a count. And in this case, we don't actually have any. So we're good there. But it does give us a bit of a breakdown of wells that do have shut-in tanks and wells that have production. So you can do a little bit of verification of those results if you wanted. Again, you can download that report. Here we're looking a little bit into some more of that Workalone, where we're asking a question, when do our employees usually start and end their shifts? It's going to find that information for me, and I can see, average looks like we're starting between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m., and we're ending between 4 and 7. And there's a breakdown of those start times and end times. Now, if I was a little bit more curious on that data set, I could drill in and ask, show me this by employee, please. And here we have a list of each employee along with their average start and end times and the total number of sessions that have been logged in the Workalone module, where again, I can download those reports as needed. Here we have a question relative to pigging specifically. And I'm asking, what pipelines do we currently operate that aren't being pigged? So here I may be putting myself in the shoes of a pipeline integrity person who's looking to see, are we a bit delinquent on some of our pigs, or are we actually not scheduling pigging on pipelines that should be pigged? So I'm going to look. It's going to find out all the pipelines licensed to my company, compare those against the pipelines in the pigging module, and give a differential report here. And I can see a sample of that report. Here's some statistics on what's being tracked and not tracked, and a table that I can download into Excel where I can start going through those now and assigning them for inspection as needed. One more on sort of that data cleanup level, and that is asking a question: what's the breakdown of the most recent tank inspections on each tank that are active, out of service, and shut in? So here, I'm just curious about my inventory and what is its current state. So I can see that I have 63 active tanks, 54 out of service, and 58 that are shut in, giving me a total of 175. And you can look at the results listed below in a couple of different graphical formats. Now we get into where we start to sort of cross that line between just simple data cleanup and actual analysis of that data. And here I'm asking a very interesting question where I just say, comparing the questions on our tank inspection form to the requirements of Directive 55, should we add some questions to our form? So I haven't given the AI assistant any background on Directive 55, but it's public data, so it has it all in its memory bank there. And it's going to go ahead and analyze Directive 55 for requirements, list those requirements against what we're currently checking on our tank inspection form, and come up with some recommendations. So here we've got 4 recommendations along with a supporting section of D55 that would lead to that recommendation that I might want to consider adding onto my inspection form. And we have our form builder application that I would be able to log into and make those changes, save it, and it will automatically be pushed out to all of my Field Ops mobile devices. The next time they create a tank inspection, those 4 questions are going to show up. So kind of an interesting use case there where we're actually analyzing our existing Field Ops setup against legislation or against directives from the regulators themselves. Another question along that line of sort of analysis, and here I'm saying, I'm the foreman of the Coaldale area. What should I be focusing on? So that's it, just a simple question. It's going to go ahead and analyze that Coaldale area inside my Field Ops application and come up with some recommended actions to do with Field Ops specifically. So obviously it doesn't know anything outside of the scope of the data that it has access to. It's identified that we have 48 overdue inspections. I probably want to start there as those are going to be high priority. There's also some reasons non-compliance. So some of the requests or the inspections that have been entered have had values that are showing non-compliant, and I'm able to report those out. Maybe I want to start dealing with those as well. And then finally, third, it comes out and says, you've also got some pending tasks. So there's some things that need to be done this month. You might want to start focusing on those next. I can download these reports and carry them out as I see fit throughout the day. Here we're sitting as maybe a superintendent, and we're curious which hierarchy, or I could have said operator run, has the best record for completing inspections on time. It's going to break down sort of, in this case, the top 5 and show their completion percentage. And then a little bit of a graph there and some data. And now I say, what about last month? Was it any different? So you'll notice in the first question, I didn't specify a time frame. I just sort of said generally who's good and who's is delinquent. Here I'm getting very specific and saying, now what about just last month specifically? And here it'll outline those 5 best performers in the last month, and gives you a breakdown here. As well as a chart that you can also download onto your device. I thought this question was very interesting, very non-specific. It's just simply, are we getting better or worse? And as you come down here, it's going to do some interpretation of what I mean by getting better or worse. But you'll see it's talking here about asset compliance, activity levels over time, and it's going to break down some key changes over time. So I can see my environmental incidents are declining. I have a shift in inspections focus. We're digital asset expansion, so I'm adding more inventory over time. My consistent high compliance, so that's always good. And my operational efficiency is consistent, and we're not really introducing any inefficiencies in our workflow. Here we've got some top inspection forms over the last 3 years, and I could obviously drill down now and start asking some lot more specific questions once I sort of have that general overview. Getting into some log sheet data, I'm able to ask a question, just analyze the daily logs from this D high at 509. It's going to find that information, deliver me some average, minimum, and maximum values for some of the different questions on that log sheet. There's a nice graph here that just shows kind of over time, how are we doing, in this case, on pressure and temperature. And I could obviously drill in a little bit deeper into here and start asking about, operational patterns or things to do to improve performance on this particular piece of equipment. It's really open book. I can sort of start really asking a lot of questions about these particular log sheets once that data has been put into the system and the AI assistant has access to it. Here we have a question to do specifically with vegetation management. Myself, I'm not an expert in vegetation management, so I don't have a lot of background information on it. So I'm just asking a simple question. Do we have any problem areas that have been identified in our vegetation management inspections? And what can we do to address this risk? So here we've got no critical noncompliances were found. We've got some recommendations to address these risks that were found. We've got some graphs here indicating the top target weed by area, the weed species intensity by area. Now I want to ask a little bit deeper question, and I want to say, are there any mismatches between chemicals being applied and the weeds that they're targeting? And it actually did identify some where we're applying some broadleaf herbicide to grasses, and we're applying some grass herbicides to broadleaf. So you can see a bit of a mismatch there that I might want to bring up with the vendor who is managing my vegetation on my sites. Here I have a question, sort of a fun one, just asking about speeders within our workforce. And I'm just curious, when not on a site, who travels fastest on average, or do we have any speeders? And I can get a report here, and I can see that Norman has maybe a bit of a lead foot here, and that he's hit 146.2 kilometers an hour, which is really nothing compared to Jordan, who's clocked in at 197.1. So might want to start having a bit of a conversation with those guys about their driving habits, and this allows me to do that. Finally, just a question again back to pigging. And I'm just curious on this particular line, 33143 line 8, what's the adherence to schedule on my pigging? And it comes down here and says, its frequency is monthly. It was last inspected in March. It was due April 1st, where it's currently overdue. Gives me some recent pigging history that I can identify. But now I'm asking a bit of a different question. I'm saying, what's the average time between pigging for the history of this pipeline? So if I go back through all of the pigging records that were completed on this particular line, what's the average interval of time between those events? And in this case, it looks like we're hitting 30.3 days, which is right exactly where I would expect to be on a monthly schedule. So looks like this pipeline is being well managed and doesn't necessarily raise any flags. But if that average came out to 60 and it was supposed to be 30, obviously we have some issues that we have to address on this particular pipeline. Those are all the examples that I had for you today on how to use the AI assistant inside of your field ops data. Again, please keep in mind, these are just simple examples to start you thinking about how you can start asking questions of your data. These aren't intended to be a full set of what's available. It's really up to the asker and the prompt on what data you would find most valuable, and allow the AI assistant to do its job, interpret that prompt or that ask, and deliver the results to you in a quick, efficient, and sort of intuitive manner. Inside Field Ops, We do not expose customer data to the AI assistant unless you specifically ask us for it. And we do this really out of respect and concern for the security and the privacy of your data that's being stored inside of our systems. We don't claim ownership on that data, and we would never expose it to any type of analysis or interaction without express consent from the customer. So if this is something you're interested in having access to, get in contact with your account manager or with our support desk, and we'll start that conversation and get that data loaded into the AI assistant so you can start getting the value out of it that we feel you're able to using this workflow. Thank you all very much, and have a good day.